catching a game in all 30 pro ballparks, and walking away with a home run ball. Check. Whatever you're getting ready for, come into Supercuts. Supercuts stylists pay attention to every detail, so you get the haircut you want. And with our signature hot towel finish, you'll walk out feeling clean, sharp, and not just ready, but super ready. Supercuts. Save time by checking in with our mobile app or at supercuts.com.
There's something outside.
What is that?
Radio. Good Sunday afternoon, Monster X Radio listeners. This is your host, Gunnar Monson. Along with me is my good friend, Shane Hardcore Corson. Shane, how are you today?
Hey, doing well, Gunnar. Doing well. Enjoying the Southern California sunshine as I'm back down in San Diego for my brother's wedding. So, yeah, doing well. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, getting over a little bit of the sniffles, but it's been, the weather this week has been up and down. We had a lot of rain, and then now we've got some sunshine. So Oregon is transitioning into the spring season. Of course, that means, some spring showers. So nothing we're not used to, but we're enjoying a little bit of sunshine. It warmed up a little bit today, so happy about that.
Yeah, and of course, spring also, we start getting a lot more time out in the field and out in the woods as the weather is a little more convenient and cooperative.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about before. It's been really, really snowy this year in the Coast Range, which is pretty unusual that we have as much of a snowpack as we have had. And that's clearing up. Only takes a couple of good rainstorms to wash that all out and open up the roads and stuff to get back out to the area that we like to go researching. So it's cool. Ready for that.
Yeah. And the water levels are extraordinarily high in some of these rivers and lakes. I've noticed extremely high. And one of the worst winters parts of the Pacific Northwest have seen in a while. So it's going to be good to get back into some of these areas. There's a tremendous amount of deadfall, tree fall, a lot of snags. So it's going to be a little tricky getting into some of these areas. But it'll be kind of interesting to see how some of these areas have changed, due to the weather.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, any place around the water this winter will have been affected by flooding, and so the river courses are going to be. It's amazing because Susan and I had gone up and camped a couple of years ago up the lower Nehalem, and we found a nice camp spot, and we went back there last year and took Jake. And it looked completely different, and it was like, wow, this is, there was rock all over the place, and it had obviously been flooded out. But yeah, it was still a nice camping place. It just was incredible to see the landscape change so drastically, in less than a year. So
yeah.
Well, with us today is Fred Syniec, and Fred, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, but Fred is a researcher out of the state of Massachusetts, and he is an active field researcher, and let's bring Fred on. Fred, welcome to Monster X Radio.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. So, Fred, for the Monster X listeners, tell us a little bit about your background and who is Fred.
Well, I'm retired right now, and about 6 years ago, I started getting involved in the Bigfoot researching. It was something I always wanted to try, and I tried it out, and I'm like hooked on it now. I go as much as I can.
So, initially, what brought you into the subject of Bigfooting?
I think I was like a lot of other people, the Patterson Gimlin film. I was interested in that. Then I read some books, and one thing led to another. I said, I like to find out a little bit more about what this is about. And that's when I, found this person on Facebook and went out with a researcher, and I've been doing it ever since.
So you are in the state of Massachusetts, which is not the first place that people generally think of for Bigfoot habitat. Tell us a little bit about where you research. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's like a state forest that we go to, and there's been sightings there. Actually, sightings by the same family twice, a crossing, and one was a peeper, one peeping in the window. So there's definitely been a white Bigfoot that was roaming the area.
But there's a lot more forest in Massachusetts than I think most people think.
Yeah, I think people don't understand how much forest there really is. There's a lot of forest in Massachusetts, quite a bit.
So when you go out and do your research, what kind of techniques do you use to? I mean, are you a tree knocking group, or what do you do to interact with Bigfoot? And have you had success?
Actually, we do a little bit of everything. We do the tree knocking. We go out and we like hike in the area where there's been sightings and whatnot. But the latest thing we've been doing lately, and it's been working like a charm, is we'll sit in the forest in the van with all the lights off, and we have one of these microphones you put out that magnifies everything. You can hear sounds. And lately, it's been like the noises are coming to us. It seems like it's working a lot better this way.
So kind of a more passive approach.
Correct, yeah. And it seemed like we'll sit there and talk, laugh, and joke, whatever, and it seemed like that's when we're starting to get more action by doing it that way than going out. That seems to be the best way we've been doing it lately.
Fred, getting into the Sasquatch thing right off, looking back 6 years ago, what were you expecting? Were you really skeptical, kind of open-minded? What were you expecting going into this, as to getting involved with the research?
I was kind of on the fence, but I was definitely interested. Like I said, after seeing a Gimlin film and stuff, that got me interested. And then reading articles, and one thing led to another. And it got to the point where I said, I want to find out what's going on here. And finally, it just is, really happening. And I've been doing it ever since.
Now, when you were looking into getting involved with the research aspect, and you're, possibly, I guess, looking at individuals, what was your perception of the online world of Bigfoot at that time compared to now?
Well, I think it's a lot better now, a lot more informative now than it was back then. There's a lot more information out there, I think.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at was, were you having? Obviously, you found people online to work with and connect with. Was there any bad? Was there anything that really threw you for a loop or threw you off when it came to the research?
Not really, because I got lucky and I found this researcher that's local, and I've been doing this ever since. So I've been lucky. I really didn't have any bad things happen.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Well,
I got lucky.
Yeah. Well, who are you now currently working with when you're in the field, or just collaborating with in general?
Well, the researcher, I don't want to reveal who it is, but the researcher is a local person that I go out with. And I'm also, I think I'd mentioned to you before that I'm on Steve Kull's Squatch detective. I'm the Massachusetts chapter. I'm involved with.
And have you? I mean, how long have you been working with Steve Kulls? Because I'm a big fan of Steve Kulls. He's a great guy, great researcher,
Oh, he is.
and a hard worker. I'm a big fan of Steve Kulls. And how's it been working with Steve Kulls? From your aspect.
Oh, it's great. He's very professional. We have a lot of fun at the same time. But we've had, actually, since I've known Steve, I had met him at a Bigfoot convention, and we kind of clicked. And he says, "Would you ever like to go out sometime, out researching?" And after that, now we've been friends for like 4 years, and I go up there. I'm going to be going up there this month sometime also to do a little research in the New York area.
Yeah, Steve Kulls. I've followed him for many years. In fact, we've had him on the show here on Monster X before.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very talented. He's the Sasquatch detective, and he's named that for a reason. He's every bit of that. But have you actually spent a lot of time in the field with Steve Kulls, or do you go out solo a lot, or do you go out in a group?
We usually go out with 2 or 3 people. But I've been with Steve off and on for the last 4 years.
Okay. What this area? Obviously you don't want to give up the exact area or anything like that, but this area, working in Massachusetts, as Gunnar mentioned earlier, when I think of Massachusetts, it's not something that screams Sasquatch to me, but having done a little bit of research of the area and knowing some people that do actually work in, do research in Massachusetts, it's actually got a lot going on for it. Can you describe some of the areas and the habitat and the natural resources in the area that you're actively researching?
Yes, there's like I said, it's a state forest, and there's a water source there. There's deers. There's plenty of things for them to eat, to survive. If in that area, there's plenty of resources over there.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys gotten a lot of reports? Real quick, Gunnar. Have you gotten a lot of reports from this area? I know you spoke of one briefly, but do you get a lot of reports from this area or any of the neighboring areas that you do this research in?
Yeah, there's been. I can't give exact numbers because I don't know myself, but
yeah,
there's been quite a few reports of sightings and whatnot.
So, Fred,
yeah, go ahead.
Tell us. Let's describe a typical outing when you get together with your friends and you head out to go squatching. What is a typical expedition or research outing involve?
Well, we usually try to go out the later the better, because it seems like the later we go out, it seems like the more action we seem to get. So we usually get there probably after midnight and park the vehicle there, turn all the lights off, and then we just listen. And like I said, it's been working fantastic. We had a lot of action in November. It was insane.
So when you say action, what are you referring to?
Okay. Well, this particular night, we were had everything off. It was quiet, and we were talking and laughing and joking, whatever. And then we kept hearing like footfalls, big, footfalls. And it started, whatever this was running at a high rate of speed, extremely heavy, and then it stopped on a dime, and then it started running again right towards the van, because you could feel it, you could hear it coming towards us. Stopped again, then ran again. So whatever it was, from what I gathered, didn't want us to be there.
So you're sitting in the van and you're listening through a parabolic mic. Is that
correct?
Correct.
Yes, correct. Yes.
And what when you're hearing this, what do you guys do?
Well, what we were hoping to do is, if once this thing got as close as it possibly could have gotten to us, we were going to put the lights on. Hopefully there was something there to see, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But that's what we were hoping for.
Gotcha. So when you guys go out and do research, are you collecting any kind of data? Are you recording the audio stuff that you're doing, or?
Oh yes. We actually have that on audio. That incident that I just told you about. It's pretty compelling.
And then what do you do with that once you've collected it? Do you have a process for vetting your evidence, or?
Well, my friends want to record it, and it's being held because we're going to get more. Hopefully, we're going to get more activity, and I was hoping to get some video of something out there because we've had a lot of action in this area we go. It seems like it's very highly active.
So is most of the activity that you've had been audio stuff?
For the most part, the audio, you mean sightings or something? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, has anybody seen it? What's making the noises?
Well, my friend seen eye shine one night, and we had a large tree break. This is another time we'd gone earlier, a couple of years before, and we're sitting at the picnic table, and all of a sudden we smelled this horrendous smell. And before that even happened, we were hearing heavy footfalls and a large tree break, and we seen my friend seen eye shine. I had thrown an apple in the woods, and right over where that apple was, my friend seen eye shine.
That's interesting. So,
it was definitely.
So what? As of yet, I always refer to a sighting as the confirmation experience. I mean, until I'm in the same boat, it sounds like you have not had a visual encounter, and I'm in the same boat. No. So I always kind of reserve where are you on the scale of 1 to 10 that this is an actual creature, living, breathing animal creature? My estimation, I'm thinking at least an 8, because they have had sightings there before in that area that we were in. Mm-hmm.
And it was I mentioned it earlier. It was a white Bigfoot.
What's that?
It was a white Bigfoot, a white Sasquatch. Yeah, I guess it was an old one. But the witnesses were saying it was white, and it looked kind of like an older one.
That's interesting because periodically we get run across. I know of couple of white reports up in Washington State, but that's kind of on the rarer side of. And this is said the same family saw the same one twice, both times the white one.
A few years ago it was we called it a peeper, peeping in the window, and then they had a road crossing by the same family, which is, the chance of it happening once is very odd, but twice they're very lucky.
Astronomical, yeah. And is that, at close proximity, the two sightings were within close proximity of each other, I'm assuming?
Oh, yes, yeah, they were very close to where their residence was, so it was very, very close.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what do you see as, the state of Bigfooting? Do you think that we're getting closer to confirmation of the species, or are we running, kind of running in place?
No, I think we're definitely getting closer. I think it's just a matter of time, I think. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think we're definitely closing in on getting more info and, possibly, I don't know what plans are, if they want to capture one or whatever, because I'm from the no-kill zone. But as far as research goes, I'd like to see them get some, really good facts and stuff.
So what do you think that it's going to take to prove their existence?
Well, I guess I would imagine either killing one or capturing one, which I think capturing one is going to be a tough ordeal, I think.
Yeah, I usually tend to say that it's going to take a specimen alive or dead, or some kind of long-term research study like Jane Goodall or something like that. In which none of that.
I agree.
An easy task, obviously. To kill one. I spoke to a researcher whose motivation was to garner a specimen by shooting one a while back, and as last I heard, they had not had any success, and I wish them luck, because if it was an easy thing to do, it would have been done already, because there's enough people out there,
Correct.
looking. So have you personally interviewed anybody that's had a great, compelling encounter, other than the folks that you talked about that had the dual encounter?
Actually, I didn't talk to him personally, but it was my friend was having a little at a local library having a lecture about Bigfoot, and this pastor and his son. This was a few years ago. They were in the area hiking, and they kept hearing all these noises all the time, and they couldn't figure out what the heck it was. And they both have watched Find a Bigfoot, so they were familiar with what a Bigfoot is. They're walking up in this area, which is an area that you wouldn't think it would be a Bigfoot, even though there's a lot of land there and stuff. And they kept hearing like stuff being thrown, like rocks and whatnot. And then the son pointed out, he goes, "Dad, what's that over there?" And what their account was, there was a squatting down by a tree. The thing was huge. Like, it squatted down. It was trying to hide itself from them.
And how long did their encounter last?
I think it was. It was such a while ago. I was going to say it was maybe 30, 40 seconds. I think it said it's jumped up and then just, from the tree line and just jumped over like this little ridge and then took off.
And that was in Massachusetts?
Correct. And actually the people, the pastor took a picture of it. It's not the clearest picture because it's so far away, but you can tell just by the shape of it. It was very wide. You can see it was trying to hide behind a tree. You could see part.
So yeah, it's always tough because the task of actually getting a clear photo, I think people underestimate what it's going to take to get one, because most of the time that Bigfoot encounters are fleeting, momentary at best, and people are not walking around necessarily with their camera or even if their phone at the ready, and that's not. I don't think that'd probably be my first response either if I was seeing a Bigfoot. I wouldn't exactly. First, it'd be probably shock. It's like, what in the heck? That it is real. So
exactly.
Yeah. So what is some of the most compelling evidence that you've run across? I mean, what is keeping you fueling the fire? What keeps you going back out?
Well, nights like that night in November, and the night actually a few weeks before that, we had an incident. We were in the same general area, and we started hearing footfalls again. And then as it got later on, we started getting pelted with little pebbles. Then it graduated into rocks, and we looked at the van, and it was little marks in there. So something was definitely throwing stuff at us.
Do you guys get a lot of kind of like wood knocks and stuff like that? I mean, are you guys experiencing wood knocks or what sound like wood knocks, anything like that out there, or coming across any track impressions?
I haven't come across any tracks, but we have had wood knocks. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's like I don't see anybody being out there 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning doing wood knocks. So I'm assuming it's probably one of our hairy friends out there.
All right. Yeah.
I would assume.
In these parts, and when it comes to the state of Massachusetts, I mean, what part of the state in general seems to get the most reports coming in? Do you have any idea?
I believe in like the Bridgewater area is what I've read. Any kind of stuff I've read about it seems like in that area there's always a lot of stuff going on that way, Bridgewater, Mass. Where the triangle is up there, which is quite famous.
Right. Yeah, famous for more than just Bigfoot.
Yeah, you're talking about UFO sightings and whatnot.
Yeah,
everything.
A little bit of everything. And what about the time of year in Massachusetts? I mean, across the country, reports come in. They seem to peak obviously when there's more people out in the woods. Like August and months like that.
Right.
Are you seeing the same sort of thing in Massachusetts?
My personal opinion is that they're around at all times, but I tend to, from what I see, seems to be more action in the warmer weather. But in the colder weather, you still hear things, but I think you have a tendency to have more action in the warmer weather.
Right, and it seems to me like you're probably of the opinion that Sasquatch is around year round. It's not necessarily migrating out of the state or completely disappearing and coming back.
No, I totally agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it makes sense. If there's no reason to leave, then why leave? We talk about this a lot.
tend to lean towards the transitory more than migratory. That they follow the food source wherever. If there's food, they're not going to expend energy to just travel for the sake of taking a vacation. If the food is there, they're going to stay in the proximity of the food. So I think what their travel patterns would follow what the food sources are. So.
Oh, without a doubt, I totally agree on that. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, Fred, tell us a little bit about your opinion of what you think that we're dealing with. Is this, this a relic hominid? Is this, a Gigantopithecus? Something entirely different? What's your opinion?
I'm thinking Gigantopithecus. That's just my feeling on it. That's stems from that. Is what I think it could be.
And what based on? What do you base your opinion on?
I don't know if I just think they could have survived, and it's like almost like a new species of ape or whatever you would like to call it. Mm-hmm. That they migrated and whatnot.
So they just kind of spread across.
Yeah, I think they. Yeah, I definitely think so.
So, as someone who has an interest in Bigfoot, are you public about your interest?
I am. Well, at first I got a lot of ridicule. Everybody goes through that, unfortunately. But I have more friends that are are interested in that. I'm interested in it too. And you're gonna have people that have opinions no matter what. So, I like what I like, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, what do you run into as the general opinion in Massachusetts on whether Bigfoot is real or?
Oh, I get a lot of they didn't find a body. There's nothing out there. Mostly things like that. There's no body out there, no evidence. And I'll say, well, what about the footprints? That's not a human footprint. And I try to tell them what I think of, what it is. And they usually come back, well, we haven't found a body yet, so I don't believe there's any such thing as that out there.
And that's, I run into people like that are convinced that they don't exist, but they generally I find that they haven't really looked at the evidence that if the preponderance of evidence that supports the idea that there is, and I'll come back with if one sighting, footprint, hair sample isn't faked or misidentified, then they exist. So
right, correct.
Yeah, and sometimes their jaw will drop, and we talk about, have you ever seen a cougar? Have you ever seen a bear?
Right.
Yeah. How often have you found? How often do you find elk skeletons in the woods, or deer, or any known animal? So yeah, I've run into that to some degree. I think that being from Oregon, there's a more open accepting that there's the possibility that they exist, just because it's so much part of the culture and right. And the conversation in the Northwest. So I don't know. Growing up, you talk about Patterson footage, footage, and we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of that footage, and we're still. I consider that to be the best evidence for the existence of Bigfoot, as far as
I totally agree.
Confirmation. And but 50 years later, we're still debating. It did not prove conclusively to the general public that it exists.
Well, my biggest beef is when I say it's a man in a suit. It's there's no way. I've gone up on this film a million times, looking at it and saying it's not a man in a suit. It's too big.
Well, yeah, and we always go back to you got to remember that this was in 1967. The best,
right.
We're talking about the best costumers at the time that have said that they could not replicate that.
No.
So
they talked to a guy actually that worked in the Planet of the Apes, this is a long time ago. I think it was in the 70s, and he said there's no way it could have been done. He goes, that's a real animal, he said.
Yeah, and most of us have seen the Planet of the Apes from that time frame, and that was about the peak of costuming at the time, and it does not match what you see in the Patterson footage.
No, not at all. Not at all. I totally agree.
So,
and Fred, what about have you come across anybody, especially in Massachusetts, that was just absolutely staunch on the fact that there is not a Sasquatch, there's not a Bigfoot, and then they've had that sighting or whatnot? Have you come across anybody like that? I have personally with hunters, some police officers. Anybody that sticks out in your mind that was so anti the idea of Bigfoot being out there that was just blown away when they had an encounter?
I did. I'm just trying to. I can't think of who it was, but there was somebody that was, very much on the fence about this, and had an evening. I'm not sure if they had a sighting, but they couldn't explain what it was, and everything that I told you that I've experienced, they had the same thing. So they're kind of changing their tune a little bit now, as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I know out here, in the Pacific Northwest, Sasquatch, it's a bit of a phenomenon, but it's got a lot of historical. There's a lot of history to it. A lot of the Native Americans talked about Sasquatch. I'm sure it's the same thing in Massachusetts. I mean, almost every state, there's a different name for Sasquatch.
True.
I think there's like over 200 names for Sasquatch given by the Native Americans. I mean, have you done any research on the Native American history in Massachusetts by itself?
I just started doing a little bit of it. I'm going to get more heavily into it, but I'm starting to, check on that myself. So I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to go. It's helped me personally out tremendously in the state. For Oregon, California, and Washington. So yeah, I love to have you back on the show to talk about that. But who do you look up to when it comes to the research of this subject? Does anybody, you got your Meldrums and whatnot. Have you actually gone to any conferences and spoke with any of these guys?
I spoke to Dr. Meldrum before. I went to the Ohio Bigfoot conference last year, talking for a little bit. But I'll be honest with you, I think Steve Kull, to me, is one of the guys I definitely look up to.
Yeah, that's without a doubt. Steve Kull is an amazing individual. I hope one day to actually have a chance to meet with him. But, of course, we're kind of on completely opposite sides of the country, though. I do like to get out to some of these conferences as well. I know Steve does, so hopefully one of these days it'll be more than just a phone call. But, yeah, fantastic individual.
Definitely. You'll like him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and Melvin's a great guy, too. Is there anybody else that you really look up to or somebody you'd actually like to meet?
Well, I've actually met this person, but, I mean, I can't talk without mentioning this guy's name, Bob Gimlin. I met twice already.
Oh yeah,
and that was a treat. I mean, his story didn't change at all. Right, exactly the way he explained it on numerous shows. It's the same exact story.
Mhm. Yeah, he was unfortunate. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He's become a good friend of mine over the years. He unfortunate living once again up here in Pacific Northwest, now Washington. And being involved with the Atlantic Project, Bob will come up to and hang out with us. And fortunately, 2 weeks ago, he was up hanging out with us. And really, we weren't doing any research. We were just kind of planning some future events and just having a get-together. And, Bob's fantastic. He loves going to conferences and stuff, and he really likes the smaller venues. And most of the time we don't talk about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. A lot of times we'll talk about what's going on in each other's lives. We'll talk about his past, which is amazing past. I mean, if you've had any chance to speak with Bob about his rodeo days or his Evel Knievel stuff, it's guy's another amazing individual, and not a lying bone I've ever found in his body. No,
I totally agree. That me and my wife was kind of on the fence about Bigfoot. Even she said, I believe him. He's seen what he's seen. Many years ago.
Yeah. I mean, Gunnar, I'm curious, Gunnar, what was your initial impression when you met Bob Gimlin? I'll tell you mine, but what was your initial impression when you met Bob Gimlin?
Bob's salt of the earth kind of guy. I mean, he's very humble, and there was a time when Bob was not wanted nothing to do with the subject. He had a very bad taste in his mouth, actually, I think it was through kind of the BFRO initially that he came back to the fold, and he's a great guy. I mean, he's just very humble, very. I mean, to me, he's one of the most compelling reasons for. I feel that if it was even possible that the Patterson-Gimlin footage was hoaxed, Bob had no knowledge of that, and that being said, they had an agreement that they would shoot if they felt threatened, and Bob had a rifle.
Right.
So the person, if it was Patterson pulling something, and that person in the suit was taking a chance of having their head blown off. So
certainly, I agree.
Yeah, and I think Bob was a good enough shot; he could have done it.
And I think he could have easily caught up. He did try to follow and found more impressions, but I think disappeared. I don't see a person out in that area disappearing. Knowing Bob being a tracker, not going to happen.
Well, my biggest thing as far as the film goes is it has female breasts. So to me, why'd you go through all the trouble of making a costume with the female breast?
Yeah, no, I mean that's been one of the arguments
point.
over time. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, one of the things that I like about the film is there's corroborating evidence. They cast impressions that match the proportions of the creature in the film. So that would have been and again, Bob was there, so that to me makes it even more compelling. Of course, we're now in 50. Like I said, this will be the 50-year anniversary of that film being made, and we're going to have to have a specimen. I'm afraid to prove, or equally compelling footage, now that can be analyzed from the nth degree. Something, when Bart Catino had his thermal footage in the Sierras a few years back, he did it the right way. He actually had somebody come in and say, prove that this isn't what I think it is. And that's what I think a fuzzy picture is not going to do it. 50 fuzzy pictures are not going to do it. Footprints, we've got lots of footprints. I think it basically now comes down to a specimen, unless there was somebody that happened to, one of these people that say that they have frequent contact, quote-unquote, habituation, actually documents that in a multitude of ways with DNA samples and footage, clear video footage and hair samples and whatever they could get over a period of time. It's going to take a body, live or dead. I mean, that's
sure.
And neither of those is an easy thing to do, for sure.
What do you guys think of that other film that they had? I forgot the guy that shot it. It was like in the 90s.
You mean Freeman?
Yes, Paul Freeman. What do you think of that one?
That is it's another one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, definitely another one of my favorites, and it was taken in the Blue Mountains, which is another, historically speaking, amazing area with a lot of history on the subject of Sasquatch. I mean, from the Native Americans to some of the people I work with have had stuff happen out there, and some of the casts that have been cast out there have been found in the other areas of the state of Washington in remote locations. So it's a vast area. Some of it's pretty dang treacherous. That particular footage, it's very compelling to me, and
it is to me as well. Yeah, I mean, one of the things is when I have been around Thomas Steenberg, he actually talked to Paul Freeman about that footage, and Thomas came away feeling like it was that had been hoaxed. I'm like, man, that if somebody hoaxed that, they did a hell of a job, because that is a very compelling. I mean, that you get a full frontal.
Yes.
The footage is really another lacking other corroborating evidence. It's another piece of interesting footage at best. It did not, prove the subject. You'd have to have multiple footage of.
Hello.
The other intriguing thing there is at the end of that, where it looks like there's a creature picking up a smaller one from the ground, which is why would you bother doing that? If this was your hope.
True.
So
yes, it's very large. To me, it looks large to me. Very large.
Oh yeah, huge. Yeah. So it's hard for me to, isn't the Blue Mountains? Isn't that the area? And Paul Freeman, isn't how initially that Dr. Meldrum got involved in Bigfoot research? He went and reviewed some of the footprints. Shane, are you familiar with that story?
Yeah, I'm not totally familiar, but I do know that was an area that Meldrum visited early on, that he found, or did not, he was led to some impressions that happened to match other impressions from another area. Of course, Meldrum being, out of Idaho State University, was given his job title, and I was very interested in footprints and stuff, and he identified key characteristics on both of these different sets of impressions that match each other, and concluded that it was the same individual, but each cast was about 50 miles apart in different areas. So that was pretty unique, and that's like you're talking about the stature, the size of this thing, the Paul Freeman footage. Yeah, it's very large, and it's got a unique kind of step and gait that I found kind of interesting and compelling. I got to lean towards it being one of the better possible piece of evidence out there. We were talking about Barcatino, his thermal footage, which was, he's from California, but another fantastic researcher. But he got some great thermal footage years ago from the Washington area, an area that I've been to.
Yeah, he did.
And and it's a really it's one of the best thermal footage pieces out there. Like Gunnar mentioned, was pretty much taken apart and by others, and concluded that I mean, unless you got 3 individuals in this remote area hanging around a campsite in pitch dark night, that's what was captured, was 3 individuals. To get the distance, but it's really good thermal footage. I also like Stacey Brown's thermal footage, and I also like the other Sarah Johnson Brown, their footage from Chehalis, Washington, of what appears to be a Sasquatch on the side of a hill, and there's cows walking by in front of it. I thought that was another great piece of footage. So those are some of the more compelling ones for me. Even though the thermal stuff, you're just getting a heat signature. It's still very compelling once you got the context and the backstory. That stuff I find compelling.
And to me, that's always a requirement for any piece of evidence, is the context. You have corroborating evidence that goes with it, and has anybody done anything to investigate the circumstances around whatever evidence, Audio, we've had a lot of audio stuff that we find interesting in our research area here in Oregon. But to me, the audio is the most difficult thing to prove as being, attributed to any particular animal, unless you know every animal in that area and have analyzed your audio compared to every known animal in that area. And then sometimes we run across things of known animals making audio that we're not familiar with. There was a audio that was being recorded that people were saying was Bigfoot, and it was at one point, in fact, this was Thomas Steenberg again. He actually saw coyotes making that very sound, and
Wow.
Boy, it was difficult for people to let go of the because now Bigfoot, mimics every animal in the forest. So,
True.
of course, that it could still be Bigfoot because he was mimicking that coyote making that sound.
Mm-hmm.
But so, Fred, what are your future plans for Bigfoot research, and what do you got up your sleeve this year?
Well, I'm going to be going. I don't know the exact date on it, but Steve Kulls is. We're getting together. We're going to go out sometime this month. You can let me know. I'm not sure the date on it yet, but we're going to be doing that. We're going to Pennsylvania in May. Eric Altman's having a thing, Bigfoot camping thing. We're going to go out. We're doing research there. That's in May 6th, 7th, and 8th, I believe.
So you said you were headed out to Pennsylvania?
Yes, that's going to be in May for 3 days.
Very good.
I'm not sure exactly whereabouts in Pennsylvania. I don't recall the name of the place, but it's supposed to be highly active. I guess they've had quite a few sightings in the area that we are going.
Well, what do you hope to accomplish? I mean, what's your personal goal with Bigfoot research? I mean, are you trying to prove they exist, or?
Yeah, that's that. I'd like to see one for myself. If I'm lucky enough to get a photo or something, but I would definitely like to see one with my own two eyes. That, I'm very interested in that happening someday, if I'm lucky enough.
So really, you're looking for a personal and confirmation experience.
Yeah, that and it. I believe in my heart they exist, even though I've never seen one. But everything I've had happen to me, other than seeing one, is a lot of their personality that I've read about that they did this one particular night. So I'm in my heart believe that they're for real.
Well, you said that the first time that you went out 6 years ago, you had enough activity that compelled you to keep going. What happened that first night?
Well, we had heavy footsteps, and then we had this huge branch break. It was enormous, and we even went out to look for where it had broken down. It wasn't an old branch. It wasn't bad weather. It was during the summer, and it was actually the tree wasn't old at all. So it was something pulled it down in this area that we went to.
So you actually found the tree that had been
broke.
It
was a large branch, and it was pulled down because whatever it is, it had to be really tall, obviously, to do something like that. But we heard that. It was very loud.
And were you able to determine how high up that the branch had been snapped from?
I think 7 or 8 feet or something like that, because I didn't measure it, but my friends measured it. I believe that's what it's in that vicinity. Yeah, it was up there a little bit.
So do you have any plans to go to any of the conferences this year?
I normally go to Ohio every year, but this year I'm probably not going to. I'm going to go to that. So it's almost kind of like a conference. The thing I'm going to is a camping outing, Bigfoot camping outing. So it's kind of like a lot of people, the mountain monster guys are going to be there, and they got other people going to be there.
Gotcha. Well, I know we've talked a little bit about you getting over to Oregon one of these days, and us going out and
I definitely would love to do that. I'm definitely in for that. Definitely.
Well, we got some good areas to take you when you get here. So.
Oh, I'm in. Believe me, I'm in for that.
And the same if we make it over to Massachusetts.
Please do. Please contact me.
Definitely will.
Yeah, we had.
Was there anything else?
I did want to mention to you that one of the times, I don't know if it was the first, second time I went out with Steve, we were in Whitehall, New York, where I'm sure you know about Whitehall, New York being very famous.
Mm-hmm. Very famous.
Okay, we were there, and we were there. We set up early, for staying overnight, and it's like we kept hearing whistling all day long. There was just like a stream not too far away. We set up trail cams, and at night we kept hearing all those noises. I had some night binoculars that a friend of mine let borrow, and we kept hearing noises. So Steve said, "Let me see those for a minute." He looked there. He thinks he's almost positive he's seen a juvenile Sasquatch right across in the with very tall grass. It was hunkering down in the grass. He's pretty sure it was.
Interesting.
It was very interesting. Very, very. And then all of a sudden it was gone. They disappear really quick.
Well, that definitely fits the profile. I mean,
it sure does.
They often, they are quick little boogers. They sneak out in and out. I'm the opinion that they know when they come into an area how they're getting out if they need to bug out.
I totally agree with you on that. Totally.
Yeah, and they kind of are masters of their environment.
Well, yeah, you can remember they live out there all the time. Yeah, they know where everything is, and they get the advantage over us big time. So.
Yeah, they have managed to outwit the Homo sapiens this long to a huge degree. So.
It's true.
Well, Fred, I'd like to thank you for joining us today on Monster X Radio, and we'll have you come back after you've had your adventure in Pennsylvania.
I would love to, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You betcha. So we'll talk to you. We will talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. You guys have a great evening.
You too. Thanks.
You too. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank our listeners for joining us today on Monster X Radio. You can go to our new website, which is www.monsterxradio.com, and subscribe to get the latest updates and participate in our upcoming drawings and such. So for my co-host Shane Corson, this is Gunnar Monson. We will be back next week with a new Monster X. Until then, keep it squatchy. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you for joining Monster X Radio.
Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.